note taker?
Quorum?
We do have quorum. We've got 5 of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'll take notes.
Thank you, sir.
No worries.
Hello, Rick.
All right, you're all set to go.
Thank you, sir. Welcome tonight. The time is 7:07 p.m. To the Conservation Environment Commission, Monday, November 29th, regular meeting. The meeting will be conducted exclusively virtually and broadcast live on television at West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098, and streamed live at the appropriate link. Commission members may use the following information. Appropriate link. I think this is the last time I'll verbatim read out what it says on the agenda for multiple reasons. And I'll even skip ahead beyond the call to order and attendance to let members here know I'm not pursuing another term, technically a third term, starting in January. So just to let you know, for your own sake of your own preparation, I want to make room for other things, and especially for other people to practice their leadership. And I hope you do. I've offered on multiple occasions for others to take the reins, and yet you like me. So, you know, honored, humbled, whatever superlatives. So put some thought into, where you want to have the commission go, and where you see your place in it. That would be my recommendation at the outset here. The process by which we do that may or may not involve me. Depends on when you want to get that started in motion, right? So assuming we have a December meeting, I'll be here for one more. Call to attendance, Matt Masunis, present. Sean Daly. I'm gonna have you test out your audio in the process here. Emily Scott.
Present.
Ted Newton.
I'm present.
Jessica Schaefer-Helmicki. Is there another hyphen now?
Unbelievably, yes. Tellerico.
Yes.
Present.
Can you say the whole thing?
Schaefer-Helmicki, Tellerico, yeah.
Thank you. That was just for the note taker, I swear.
Yeah, stress
Rick
testing the DMV, yeah.
I see Mr. Bush is here. Emily Sexton, and I do not believe she's here. She did make it last time. And am I missing anybody who I should be calling out?
Ronnie
Rogers.
Jessica, your name could be its own law firm.
Tarantula and Tarantula. Not yours. Ronnie Robbins excused. Hanukkah holiday. And thank you so much. We have quorum. Moving on to number 2 on the agenda, old business. We are seeking approval of minutes from September 29th, 2021, given that we had to move over the October meeting. Do I hear any takers or any edit suggestions at this late hour? And that would be takers for motion of approval.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll take Ted's motion as the second and Rick's as the first. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are adopted. Number 3, new business. Schedule of 2022 meeting dates. These were circulated in advance. If it's helpful, I could bark those out right now. Happy to do so. If anyone wants to intercept with something along the lines of, hey, I know that date is a holiday and you missed that, or if we could please have it on a different date, then we can have that sort of discussion. Otherwise, that'll be the draft schedule of dates that we offer up to the town clerk for their own similar screening of, are there rooms available that day, channels available that day, etc.
Look fun.
I have no
Schedule looks
issue.
good.
30th Memorial Day, May 30th.
I don't think so. Is it the week before?
I don't know.
May 30th.
Hang on. Good question.
It is on May 30th for the 22nd. Is that what we listed on the draft?
You listed May 30th as the meeting date. April, May. Yeah, May 30th is Memorial Day.
It doesn't automatically preclude us from having on that day, but you
I
know,
have plans.
it's a holiday.
Except it's only going to be you who
Yeah.
who's
And
present.
not even anymore.
It will not be me.
Right,
Let's
right. That's
see.
right. We just said, yeah, exactly.
So the week
Are we-
prior to that, should we assume that's the 23rd?
Yeah.
Are we sure that Memorial Day is the 30th and not the fourth Monday in the month?
According to my calendar here, and granted it's an Apple calendar, so take that what you will.
Yeah.
It does say that May 30th is Memorial Day.
That
According to
makes
my
sense.
Google search, which is adversarial with the Apple platform, it says the same.
Okay, well, I'll take
It's the
that.
last Monday in May. So I think
Just wanna make sure.
Solution here.
So I'm going to change the draft to the 23rd for May. Do we have any other flags? Flag Day?
No, I was just going to point out that the October meeting is a week before the last Monday, but I think it's because the last Monday is the 31st and that's Halloween.
Yes,
Cool.
makes
I think I
sense.
did that deliberately. All right. Do I have any motion to adopt our 2022 meeting calendar?
So moved.
By Mr. Daly,
Second.
second by Bush. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Consider them adopted. I'll transmit them to the clerk. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question
Yes, sir.
regarding your earlier statements regarding chairmanship. Are you officially stepping down, or are you hoping to potentially lose in a runoff?
Well, that would be a fascinating strategy, just to fight the fight for the heck of it. I told the clerk that I would not be seeking what it would officially be a third term, although the first one was a little bit short. That I would be stepping out of the commission as of 2022.
Okay.
So you may have fun with that vacuum as you will, or keep me looped in for next month, and I will help shepherd if I could be helpful.
Yeah, and I might as well mention as well, Matt, that I'm probably going to be replacing myself on this commission. But it'll be after the new after the caucus in January. So I suspect December will be my last one, but I'll replace somebody.
RTC caucus or a caucus of your peers here?
RTC caucus.
Okay.
So Matt, the question I just have is, so how does a chair be appointed once the original chair no longer seeks a next term? So is that done through the vote of the commission? Is it done through, who's got the greatest longevity? How does that work? Do you know?
There's nothing automatic about it. It's commission determined to a certain extent. It's whatever willing participants are foolhardy enough to throw their hat in the ring, and then they hear silence from everyone else, and then they become the chairman. Another way is by putting it to a vote, and that could be done either with say open ballot vote, or cast to myself, or find some third party like the town clerk, have them tally whatever the names look like. The sky's the limit, or maybe Robert's rules are the limit, but generally you've got latitude for how you want to pursue it.
Okay, I didn't know if there was some town prescribed way for a commission to elect a chairman, or to replace a chairman once that person leaves the commission.
Anyone want the homework assignment?
Well, my understanding is, and I have it from Essie, I was just looking, that right, there is a certain amount of there are a certain amount of spots that are decided upon by the town council, and depending on how Matt was originally voted on, there's nominees that will be to replace him. That doesn't necessarily mean, and I think, Matt, this is what you're getting at, which is if you decide to step down now as chairman and there's somebody here who wants to be chairman, my understanding is we as the commission can vote on who the current chairperson is that that goes out, or you can wait until you're replaced and then have the commission vote on a new chairman. Is that what you're asking, or was I guessing?
Is that what
Yeah.
I was asking?
If Sean and Matt are both rolling off effective and we'll have new people in these seats in January, it strikes me that the newly composed commission should pick its chair.
I like that.
So it's officially not your problem.
No, yeah, because it's not my problem. But I mean, it strikes a good chord with me, right? Because I would sense others have expressed to me like, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that commission. It can take a little while after that expression of interest to actually get appointed to something, and so there may very well be a lot of churn, right?
So if I may interject, so my understanding is that there is going to be there will be 4 vacancies. There needs to be a decision to reappoint Emily Sexton. Emily Scott, I believe you're up as well.
Yeah, and
Matt,
I signaled my willingness to re-up. So
okay. And
I was working that
and
with
Matt,
the town clerk a little bit. I expect her intention is to also carry forward.
okay. So yeah, so assuming that Emily and both Emily's stay, and then Matt, you're replaced by someone, and then we'll choose. I'm working with Mary Fay right now on who will replace me. Then yeah, then once you have the new, I agree with Emily, which is we might want to wait until the new commission comes into play and then decide who you folks want to be as chairman and vice chairman for the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
So,
I have to say that coming into this commission and having an established order certainly felt more comfortable. And I think it might not be a bad idea to have, look into people who've been in the commission already for a period of time, who've, shown their willingness to serve, who understand how the commission runs, who might be interested in being the chairman. I think it might be better to offer existing members who've already paid their dues instead of just somebody who might step in and maybe have no political experience or no experience in running anything. So I think we should consider possibly, looking in the group to see if there's anybody currently here who may want to step up and take the position.
I'm flattered that you said you didn't walk into chaos and that you actually walked into something procedural. That's great.
I think you do a good job, and I think you're going to be missed. So,
well, if I step down as chair effective this meeting, then procedurally, I think we'd have a tangle. So I won't do that yet. But does anyone have comments on Mr. Bush's suggestion?
I think, maybe as a compromise, we could say, this person, whoever, whichever one of the 4 or 5 of us is going to continue, can serve as acting chair for that first meeting and preside over the meeting at which the new chair is elected. Meaning like the meeting opens with like someone in charge and like leading the agenda, so it's not pure chaos. But I do feel like, I don't know, Sean, which of your colleagues will replace you, and, Matt, who will line up behind you, and whoever that person is, they should have an opportunity to throw their hat in the ring for a leadership position if they're interested.
So I guess the rest would be going back to that imagined idea of a CEC caucus. When I was mentioning that in response to Sean mentioning that, you're at liberty to do that if you want, right? Have a sidebar conversation of fewer than half of the quorum of members at any given time, which is what you're allowed to do, and whip your votes. And then, you could pick among yourselves who might be leader for the following month. That's plausible.
well, maybe we should just nominate, or people should just step up and see who's interested before we get too crazy. Because I can tell you, I'm certainly not interested.
I would, be willing, but I'm not gonna twist anyone's arms or, engage in whatever kind of electioneering you contemplate.
I would support.
I was going to say, like Rick, I don't feel like I'm ready to lead this group. I'm involved in some other leadership opportunities, and quite honestly, I think I've maybe overextended a bit. So I'd be happy to continue serving on the commission. I just don't think I make a very good chair.
And then there was one.
I would like to
I'm in full
respectfully
support.
disagree with
If you want.
Ted. I think Ted would be amazing.
I think Ted would be great too, but I think he's extended, like he said, he's maybe overextended.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I agree too,
this
but he's
might
got
be
a
the
lot of
first-
money.
Oh no, I'm absolutely kidding, but I do think it would be fantastic, and Emily as well. I just can't believe that there isn't some precedent for this where the proper procedure either must be in Robert rules or town council can give us some advice about the proper procedure. I mean, I know we don't seem to lean too heavily on a precedent here necessarily, but
Past
is
precedent,
this
I feel like we had an interim chair with Scott Sebastian for a while after the other one stepped out. And then when he was telegraphing for a while that he was ready to go, I had expressed an interest in serving, and I believe at the time Ryan Langan, who preceded you, Sean, in perhaps that seat, had expressed an interest in being the vice. And so we had moved forward on simple expression of interest. I don't think a vote was even taken. I don't recall.
right? Because we don't have a procedure for taking votes or anything of that nature, like that kind of structure. But I mean, I don't know if this is something that we actually want to be able to point to a specific rule and say, this is how it's done, like we wait till the turnover. But I am certainly not expressing an interest either, but
With your professional affiliation causing you to forcing neutrality upon you on so many issues, that actually be
right,
kind of interesting.
even things with
If you were.
ordinances and whatnot, I certainly, yeah, there's even a little
Sean, your hands up.
question is,
So I do think we do have procedure. We do follow. We try to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and I do think that there historically speaking, my understanding is, and this is the way it works with all commissions and boards within the town of West Hartford, although I readily admit I'm still learning this, is that once a commission or board has been formed or has its members, if there is an opening for a chairperson and or a vice chairperson, that's voted on by the current members of that commission. So I think that's set. I think what we're trying to figure out is, one, do we have anyone who wants the position? And we have a person with Emily who has stepped forward. And then the second piece is, okay, do we wait until we have newer members that we know are going to be joining before we decide on a new chairperson? Or do we go ahead and basically vote on the single person who's come forward saying, I'd like to be chair? And then the second piece to that, when does that person take over as chair? And it sounds like we all are in agreement that we would like Matt to remain as chair through December. And then whomever the new chairperson would take over in January. And now I'll interject my opinion. My opinion is if you have Emily who wants this, similar to what Rick is saying, Emily's been on the board, on the commission. Emily has good knowledge of how this works. Then I'm comfortable with us making a decision now. I actually know that goes against a little bit of Emily, who's saying, well, why not wait until, right? Why not wait until we have the other members and then decide then? But I think it is kind of clear what we want to decide on. We need to decide whether or not we want to make a decision now, or whether or not we want to make a decision once the new members come on. And then we also need to decide, if we do it now, when do we vote on the person who has come, Emily, who's come forward? And if so, does she take over in January or does she take over in December? that make
Right, and I
sense?
apologize,
This is
Emily. I
totally
thought you were saying
democracy
you were
now.
not interested. You
Oh,
would be
no, no.
amazing as well. Great.
Well, I think like I don't have strong feeling. I mean, this is like clearly not a power struggle here, but I feel like if Matt is still here, then we don't have a vacancy yet, right?
That's
I have
correct.
an idea. I saw Rick's hand up first.
So, Sean, I think that everything you said was pretty accurate. I just want to say that my feeling is that if Emily has an interest, she's done her time. I think that we have the authority to just vote on it tonight and put her into that position. I think that would be fair. It would be reasonable. She'd make a great leader, and there's no reason not to do it. Certainly, we know what we're getting, with her at the helm, and because of the sort of very open description that Matt provided at the beginning of this conversation, we pretty much, I think, have the authority to make whatever decisions we want to make as a group. So I would absolutely be supportive of calling, nominating Emily and making a motion that we vote for her to replace Matt. That I would have no problem with that.
So that's similar to where I was going, which was, should we make that formal now, indicating that she is in the role of acting chair, either starting in December or January, for example, co-run a meeting in December to get started, and then cement that in January with the new membership when you take a role and make the acting chair the chair. Is that the way to kind of thread that needle, or is that getting too complicated?
Yeah, I think I agree with Rick, which is that I think we have the authority to make that decision now. And Rick, if you want, I think it's right. If you want to make a motion, right, to elect Emily as the chair with her tenure to begin at the meeting on January 31st, I think that solves for what we're looking to do, unless anyone has an objection.
I think that's
So
reasonable.
this is Ted. I don't have an objection to that. I just want to think this through because this was not on the agenda for tonight. We do have a number of commission members who are not present, but who might otherwise have been present had it been on the agenda for tonight. And I just don't want to have that lack of agenda awareness be an issue between now and what would be a smooth transition. So
Yeah, that's a
perhaps
great,
we put this on the agenda for December.
totally.
That's a good point.
Great point.
I
And-
agree with that.
Additionally, it is Hanukkah, so there's going to be people who specifically couldn't be here tonight, even if they
Right.
wanted
Correct,
to.
yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let's do this next time.
As long as Emily's still willing at the next meeting, we're okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's a risk we take, right?
Absolutely.
No,
Back
Ted,
out.
thank you for raising that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a
I
good
agree.
point.
All right, so I'll put in the notes here that we're going to table this discussion. We'll put it on the and we'll put it on the December agenda.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I think it should be clear that it is Emily who has offered to take the reins of the chairmanship. So that,
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
She could bring out all those zany ideas she's never debuted yet and
Totally.
take you all by surprise.
Totally.
Great. Thank you for letting the notes reflect that. Excellent catch. New business number 2. The town's request for more formal input on landscaping equipment. So as I indicated at the start of this, I'm stepping out of this. I am not stepping out of this without discharging a responsibility at the very least, or handing it off in good fashion to others. So if you'll permit me to set the table here, I've got probably my notes I was jotting are next to me. I've got like 3 minutes of table setting just to jog everyone's mind as to where we were at, what my current take is, if you'll allow me to express that at the outset, and then open dialogue. Does that work?
Perfect.
Forgive me, my toddler got me sick as of yesterday, so I'll probably choke up in various points. So let's see. So the town has received requests for it to address a certain issue through local legislation. At our September meeting, we heard more about this. We hosted Town Manager Hart, heard verbal input from community members on various angles of the issue related to lawn equipment, where the operation of leaf blowers appeared to rise to the top. one of our members forwarded me an article, among others, from Yale Climate Connections, and I thought it actually provided a decent summary of some of the subject matter. I'll quote for a moment. Two-stroke engines are simpler, cheaper, and lighter than four-stroke engines in most modern cars, and they have a better power-to-weight ratio. But they're vastly dirtier and less fuel efficient because by design, they slosh together a mixture of gasoline and oil in the combustion chamber and then spew out as much as 1/3 of that fuel as an unburned aerosol, end quote. So those machines, they don't have emissions or vapor controls, and that can contribute to negative health and environmental consequences. There's something more noticeable about them, which seem to account for at least 50% of the complaints, and that's the noise or quality of life issue. I was going to say my friend, but I would slip up and then you'd know it's me. So I'll just say it's me. I live on a small lot. I'm in Elmwood Center. Love my neighbors. They're great. Some of them have maintenance contractors. They do beautiful work. But particularly in small lot property neighborhoods, I mean, you could be operating a jetpack 10 feet away from the next person's window, right? Certain landscaping equipment becomes a negative quality of life issue. In the past month or so, we had a few 70-degree days, peak hours when I might get sunlight, fresh air, commune with nature, bring a laptop outside because so many of us are working from home right now. I can't because contractors, they work during those regular business hours. And after 1 hour, that same sound will light up on the next property over, right? So they create a low frequency noise that penetrates glass or walls better than most, and forget about opening your window for a breeze, especially when you're on phone calls, work calls, that sort of thing. Like it is deafening noise. So pause right there and remember that a lot of people are teleworking right now, which is probably why we're hearing more about this over the past 3 to 4 months, right? As these complaints started rolling in. And that telework's expected to prevail at greater than historical rates than compared to pre-pandemic, right? So that's in addition to the folks who normally work from home with family care or for other reasons. So, if I wanted to go elsewhere to enjoy nature, yes, I could and go to a park. I think there's a cost attached to that community characteristic though, right? Can you open your door, step outside during a nice day, right? It's like buying an identical property on a quiet street versus a noisy one. There's probably going to be a price premium that's somewhere in there in terms of what you're getting that house for, right? Based on community characteristics you're observing. So would you like to enjoy nice weather outside your house, or would you like to have to travel to do that? That question did occur to me. And so my opinion is there's room for improvement in terms of residents being able to enjoy nature in their community, right? Keep it simple for now. And that can have implications as to attractiveness, public health of the community. I don't want to take from people the ability to earn a living or to make their property beautiful, but I do propose we do something, and we have been requested to take an action by the town itself. And that action is to create a recommendation for the towns and the town council's subsequent consideration. What concept we advance here may or may not become an ordinance or an initiative or anything like that. But I think that we should do something. Now, given what I've already heard from some members, I would frankly be surprised if we arrived at like an outright ban on equipment that people already own or something along those lines. If folks want to argue for that, by all means. But I would propose, as you had heard me do on the email noticing this meeting, calling it to order a few weeks ago, that we should expand what we're thinking about right here, so that it includes not just the sticks, but the carrots, right? So not just regulation, but the possibility of providing some sort of market inducement or incentive, right? To move, be it residents, contractors, or whatever, into a certain direction. And there's some ideas I could go further on that into. I'll park them just for the time being until we get into dialogue. But this body of citizens, we're charged with preserving environmental integrity. And so I do want us, before my term is up, to think through what we're going to put on paper to recommend to the town, especially if it's arrived at through a compromise among disagreeing members, because this is democracy. That's how it works. We could debrief about the sorts of things we heard few months ago. It's been a few months. I hope I did some justice in just summing it up right there. And then let's figure out where to take these next steps rather than me saying what they should be at the outset. I think what we just learned from the succession planning right here is that many heads come up with better ideas faster, right? So yeah, let me take a breather right there and open it up for anyone else's thoughts in order of exuberance, whoever wants to put their hand up.
I'm usually the most exuberant one in the group, so I'll try to not to contain my energy. So would you mind just going over a brief summary of some of the discussion that occurred? I think I may have missed the last meeting, so I don't repeat some of the stuff. Is that available?
You did miss the last meeting because the last meeting we couldn't do for quorum. And September, if I recall, was when we had the public input forum. So I would simply, rather than misstating others' positions, I would refer them to the minutes, to the video record, in order to arrive at that. It was a collection of residents from various perspectives on. I'm not going to get into individuals. Folks could recount that if they'd like, but yeah, there's documentation on that that's been circulated for a few months.
And so the you had mentioned a carrot and a stick. Could you just refresh the viewers and whoever might be listening to what the carrot is and what the stick is?
Yeah, as I like to say for the 2 a.m. cable access audience. So think of a regulation as a stick, right? You compel something through force of law or something similar, right? So you're creating the outcome based on the threat of punishment, essentially, right?
Right.
In order to
We know
corral
what a
behavior.
carrot is and a stick is, but do we have a specific example of the carrot and the stick that you were offering, or that we are
Saying for the general audience? I was trying to explain political science. So think along those lines as an example. A noise ordinance, because I think through discussion largely it came about that, yeah, that is a stick that the town has. I remember Town Manager Hart saying, just like so many, because of the finite human resources, that it's mostly complaint based, right? So let's say you've got a noise complaint, then an enforcement action or investigation will take place from there, right? As opposed to let's put decibel meters on every street, right? And it's not like that. So right now it's a complaint basis. And let's say we were to roll along with that idea, then the sorts of things we might want to think about are, all right, if there's a specific type of machinery here that seems, even at baseline standards, to be annoying to the community, then do you do something about that? Do you change the decibel level thresholds for certain operations? Is it for residential or commercial? Is it for small lot properties or large lot properties? Is it based on time of year or time of day, right? There's a lot of different ways to cut that. But those are examples of like a regulation or ordinance that would be put in place to corral behavior based on a characteristic. In that place, in this case, noise. Emissions was another issue here, but the town itself doesn't really have that stick, so to speak, right, in its municipal powers, as that tends to happen at upstream levels with the state or even the feds. You saw the article or the blurb I had forwarded about how California was actually doing upstream product standards to phase out those sorts of products, which I actually didn't see coming when we started these conversations. So that is the stick. Carrot, on the other side, would be some sort of inducement to take an action because you'll be rewarded, right? So I think the old metaphor is like some other animal is riding on like a mule or a tortoise or something. You're going to hit him with a stick or dangle a carrot in front of him, right? So create let's say it's still a government intervention, right? Except it's a market intervention in that case, so as to make it more palatable or economically desirable for a resident or business to move in a particular direction. That's an example of a carrot, or that is a carrot. An example of a carrot would be, let's say, and here's where my thinking is going on this. So thanks for the prompt. It would be, there's a lot of money coming on down, right? You could have various thoughts about that or not, but the feds have turned on the spigot. There's the American Recovery Plan, ARPA, and towns across the country have the ability to use those funds for a set number of things. They could also, since money's fungible, use those funds for existing things they do, and then they've got free money on the other side, right? So it could be for something that relates, or leave it to the town. If it's something that is on a tangent or doesn't fully relate, maybe the money is found elsewhere, but an incentive of some sort might be created, like a time-limited campaign that plays on people's instincts for a deal and says, I can get an extra $100 or so or $50 off, or whatever it is, on an all-electric leaf blower or mower or something along those lines. And we'll offer these to you at, I don't know how this would work yet, right? Town Hall, or at Lowe's, Home Depot, and Ace Hardware, or whatever it is, where that can be redeemable in some fashion. It would be innovative. I haven't heard of other communities doing that yet, which could be bad and good. So it would put us on an innovative line, right? But it's an interesting enough idea that I would want to bring it to this commission to also think about chewing on, in addition to, or as an alternative to, regulating on the noise ordinance side, while trying to multi-solve for the noise and pollution aspect of it, right? With ARPA funds, I was actually researching this yesterday, and there is a little bit of play when it comes to that. Let's see, for example, housing services to support healthy living environments in neighborhoods conducive to mental and physical wellness. A lot of, maybe not every single one of those words, but most of those words seems like it might relate to this, right? So there could be some, string in between ARPA funds, or there might not be, but budgeting is simply fungible, and money could be found. If we don't want to recommend to the town to tighten up an ordinance in some fashion, ban leaf blowers altogether, or do it under this set of circumstances, then could we instead make a recommendation to the town to consider, and this is the full force of what we have to offer, right? It's making a recommendation to consider something, that they provide an inducement of some sort instead to move behavior. So that's, you might get another 5 minutes out of me, Rick, but
That was impressive. I have to tell you, that was a well constructed soliloquy or whatever you want. But I just want to throw my 2 cents in as somebody who uses both a gas powered and a battery powered leaf blower. Who literally yesterday I used both at the and unfortunately, I think that the practicality of the power of the battery powered blowers is going to be an issue. Additionally, they're really not that much quieter. When you actually have a fan motor that has to spin, and the air that comes out through that tube creates a pretty loud noise. I mean, I still wear my headphones when I blow leaves with a battery powered leaf blower, and it takes 3 times as long to do it. So not only do you have approximately the same amount of noise, you have it 3 times longer, so there's not really much of a savings as far as any noise ordinance would be involved. I mean, my neighbor does have a a battery powered lawnmower, and that definitely is quieter. But on top of that, I actually have a battery powered weed whacker as well, and that is very loud also because the noise of the spinning and the hitting of the weeds, it creates fairly significant noise. So, those are the practical aspects of what you'd be gaining. I don't think would outweigh any expense to try to mitigate. I did like the idea, and as you were saying, the 1/3 of the unburned fuel is aerosolized, and all I kept thinking about was inhaling all of that. That to me was a far more motivating argument that it's not healthy for the people to use it versus the noise. I think you're going to have a very difficult argument. And the other argument, I guess, if you're going to move into the lawnmower argument, the lawnmower equipment that the town has is just gigantic. I mean, they have these large pieces of equipment with multiple mower blades going simultaneously. There's be very difficult and extremely expensive to find the batteries big enough and the machines big enough to justify that cost. So
On that, and just only while I'm thinking of it, I don't want to preempt anyone else's thoughts. We could also add in something like a clause that, assuming it takes a route like that where you'd need to add that clause, you could make a presumption that the technology is sufficient to do the job to begin with, right? Or else you don't need to make that changeover.
Right, because I don't think the technology
Jurisdictions do that.
exists. Yeah.
And then there were some parts of that I was tempted to push back on, but I'm not going to talk this whole time. So Ted's hand I saw up first, and then Sean's.
Yeah, so I'm in pretty much alignment with Rick on this. My personal experience with at least the weed whackers and the leaf blowers, they're about the same in terms of noise. I do have a battery powered lawnmower. I bought one this year, and I've been really pleased with it. Not only because it works well, it actually cuts the lawn in less time because it's lighter and it's way quieter. So I find that there's a significant difference in the lawnmower versus the other types of things. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not necessarily to say we should focus on lawnmowers versus weed whackers or leaf blowers, but education, I think, is also important. So you talked about the carrot and the stick. I think education falls in a different category. But if you outline for people why it might be in their own personal interest to the next time they need to replace a piece of equipment to look at battery powered, then I think you have a better chance at influencing people's behavior. So, Rick, you mentioned something like, I can't remember the term you used, but if you're breathing in all this fumes, it's not good for you, right? You don't have that problem with a battery powered. At least we don't personally. Maybe the people where the power plant that produces the energy that goes in the battery maybe are suffering a little bit more than if we hadn't bought a battery operated lawnmower. But I guess the point being, you can see there are risks to your personal health when you're using a gas powered lawnmower that may not be present when you're doing battery. And oh, by the way, it's way quieter. So those types of educational pieces, I think, is really important for whether it's the town or the commission or interested groups to persuade people to change their behavior. That said, though, I do believe also in the power of the market and incentives. So if the town, for example, offers a tax credit, property tax credit for purchases of so-called clean or quiet equipment, I think that would be, or whether it's through a lottery or through just everybody gets the credit. I think that's an interesting way if the town believes it's in the public's best interest to influence that kind of behavior to spur people. And that would be, of course, businesses as well as residents.
Thank you, sir. Sean, did you have something?
Yes, I did. And actually, I'm agreeing for the most part with Ted and Rick. I think a couple of things. First of all, Matt, I appreciated you looking at the Yale article. It was kind of funny how you took one piece of the article completely out of context in support of your argument, but that the rest of it,
I
which
will
was,
interrupt you, and I don't do that often. You send bad articles for your own arguments because a lot of them were reinforcing me, actually, and that was the bad article for you to send. Go ahead.
oh, I disagree, and here's why. What the main gist of the article is that there hasn't been enough peer review to actually determine whether or not this is actually a real viable issue. That was what the bulk of the article was that I sent to you. And as part of that, I think, this gets back to government overreach into into our private lives. Now, I get it that you've got a very, very small contingency of a certain group of residents who are saying this is a noise problem. I would argue that if this went to referendum, this would be soundly defeated. I don't think that this is a big issue in town. In addition, Rick and Ted have talked about the battery operated equipment. Ironically, I think as I read it, this was more about changing to electric leaf blowers. But with that said, when you look at battery operated, it's funny how we quickly forget that battery operated power equipment is powered by a lithium battery, which has historically been proven to be as destructive to the environment as gas powered engines. So I think that's, one of the things that we need to think about. In addition, so now let's get rid of the battery for a second, the battery powered, but let's go to the electric powered. Where are you getting your electric power from? Where is the state of Connecticut getting its electric power from? Fossil fueled organizations. So let me get this straight. We're worried about gas powered equipment contributing to our environmental issues, but we're going to force people to go to electric power equipment that draws its power from large coal mine manufacturing businesses, which is where the state of Connecticut gets most of its power from.
All right, I think
Explain to me
on
the
a little
logic.
bit. There's a bunch of Sean. You know what? You and I, we tend to like to agree to disagree on certain things, and there's a little bit of rhetoric that you're throwing around that may or may not be true. I think we're mostly natural gas, just instead of not coal. I don't think Connecticut gets any of its power from coal. So let's. But anyway, we're not trying to
Actually,
force
I'll send you an article
anything.
that I'll send you an article on that.
Yeah,
It
there's
does.
an article
We
about
talked
everything.
this with the
But
flag.
listen, we're not trying to
we
argue. We're just trying to talk about how we can, as a group, maybe make our town better. We're not arguing. We're saying, is it a
But
better place to
that's my
live?
point. I don't think we're making our town any better by implementing this. And so what I think is, I think we should recommend that the town not go forward with it, or at the very least, we recommend that, that either further study is required, because as my article pointed out, Matt, there isn't a lot of valid peer-to-peer research on this subject. There's a lot of opinion on this, but not solid research. So I would say either further study is required or have it go to referendum in the town.
Just as genius is never
Thanks.
regarded in its own time, Mr. Daly, you may be in the future regarded as the greatest among us in terms of environmentalists. I will not weigh in on, thank you, Rick. I won't weigh in on to do a point-by-point rebuttal right there, but I'm too tempted as the energy guy. It's baseload nuclear, peaker, natural gas, zero coal. And mining this, we've been over this stuff before, mining the materials, you've got a carbon deficit, you recoup that very quickly when it comes to actually operating the machine and not putting out CO2. Anyways, I don't disagree with you, Sean, about going to referendum. I mean, who wants to give up the equipment that they already purchased, right? So there's room for creative options as a result. You baited me into weighing in just a little bit, but let me wade back out because there are some folks we haven't heard from.
I own and enjoy battery operated lawn equipment, but I haven't been persuaded that we need to take action at this time. or at least I would have an easier time with this like debate or whatever if there was a concrete proposal in front of us that like I don't feel strongly enough about the issue to craft a proposal out of the clear blue sky. And you know, if someone like had a proposal, we could react to it, but like I haven't been persuaded that, you know,
Those who have felt strongly enough have advocated for complete bans, right? So that's what
I
we
don't
heard at the
think
input
that's
session.
yeah, and I guess like, you know, we've heard some advocacy around a complete ban, and I think our kind of initial reaction was like, yikes, that's not going to happen. But short of that, like, is there a proposal that's been floated?
Yes, whether or not you realize it. But Rick, then Ted.
I think Ted had a proposal. I thought Ted probably had the most legitimate proposal of this entire argument, which is provide people the information that they need to make a sound decision and let them decide for themselves. And you know, you give somebody the opportunity to be more respectful to their neighbors, to be more healthy to their own body and to their environment, and you provide them with the education necessary to and to make the decision, and maybe throw in a West Hartford property tax credit of a couple dollars on top of it. And I think you might be able to actually make people make that decision on their own without having to put any carrot or any stick. Actually, there is a carrot. It's their own benefit, their own well-being. So without having to put the stick at all. So I think there is a proposal. And if we're going to spend any money, if anyone's going to spend any money, which is in very short supply, even with the money that's coming from the federal government, trust me, everybody's got their hand out, you know, everybody. So you know, maybe we do something when we send out the recycling newsletter, or I think we make it, you know, there's literature that is disseminated to the public on a regular basis, at least once a year, regarding your trash or your recycling. Maybe we craft some language that says, hey, have you thought about buying a battery powered lawn and leaf blower? It might prevent cancer because you don't inhale the fumes of your oil and gas. Something that simple, I think, would be extremely effective. Wouldn't harm anybody. You know, regardless of the you know, where the lithium and cobalt comes from. I don't know, you know, I don't know those details or those facts, but you know, I think that it does make sense to have those types of equipment readily available to people. So I think an educational approach is no doubt an effective way, probably the most effective way available to us.
Ted, did you have your hand up, or did Rick beat you to that punch?
Rick pretty much said what I wanted to say, which is great. Thank you, Rick, for probably saying it more eloquently than I could. You know, I just go back and look at my own purchase, and you know, maybe I think a little bit differently than other people, but you know, that didn't come out the right way. Sorry. Maybe the way I thought about this particular purchase is not the way that many people, if not most people, would think about a similar purchase. Is probably the better way to say it. But you know, I spent a couple, let's say maybe $150, $200 more on the battery powered lawnmower. And that was a tough decision, quite honestly. You know, here I could get a regular lawnmower for, you know, $350, $400, or spend $600 on this battery operated one. And I really thought back and forth, and, you know, had to convince myself that this was the appropriate thing to do. Looking back on it now, I couldn't be happier, because I know that I'm going to save myself a lot of money and just angst over, you know, not having to deal with mechanical issues, you know, bringing in for a tune-up and all that type of thing over the years. Maybe I get a battery though. But that kind of education, I think, would have really helped me come to a decision one way or the other a little bit more quickly. And, you know, for some people, the gas powered operator is going to be better. And so that may be counterintuitive or counterproductive to maybe what our ultimate goal of the commission is, which is to promote, you know, more environmentally friendly approach. But, you know, some of the things that Sean points out is like, yeah, I mean, the jury is still out in terms of where you're sourcing this energy from and where, you know, who ultimately it hurts. But I think we can all agree that the noise reduction opportunity is better with battery powered equipment typically. It's not going to be any greater, let's put it that way. It's potentially going to be less, and probably the health benefits for the people who operate them, whether it's a commercial landscaper or a resident just taking care of their lawn, it's going to be better with battery operated piece of equipment. So having that information out there available may spur people to buy more electric equipment, and it'll spur the demand, which means that more people will look into research, it'll bring the price down, and that means commercial operators who can't possibly afford to transfer their or switch over to battery operated equipment now, because one, it's not powerful enough, and two, it's going to be too costly. That may not be the case in 10 years.
John has a hand up.
Yeah, no, and that's the other piece. I did have a chance to talk to several landscaping organizations, including my own, a couple from my neighbor, and a couple of other neighbors. I think one of the other things, there was talk about, Matt, and have you heard this, that the other talk is banning it only for residential use and not commercial use? I thought I read where the head groundskeeper or something with Hartford Golf Club had suggested that this only be used for, the ban only be for residential and not for commercial use, which again, yeah, it seems like a, I definitely would take issue to that, because again, what are you doing, right? You're hurting, again, if you force all the landscapers to have to get rid of their equipment and create new equipment, that cost is going to go down to the consumer, which is really going to hurt, families that hire these organizations, especially coming off an area of COVID. And I should correct, I always say coal, but I initially said fossil fuel. And you're right, half of Connecticut's energy comes from nuclear. The other half is from natural gas, and natural gas is a fossil fuel. So thanks for correcting me.
I'll do that all day if you start talking about the generation fleet. Cool. So both Rick and Ted had jumped in front of what I wanted to say and then said the same thing. I also appreciated Ted's comment earlier where he zeroed in on the education aspect of this, with the possibility of some sort of stipend, and you actually thought of a better claimability reclamation mechanism than I thought of, which is, stop by Ace Hardware and they'll give you a voucher. It's like, no, they've got property taxes as the mechanism, right? So in order to redeem it, that's a possibility. So a part of this could be, education could be free, right? How much sweat equity does the CEC or a future version of the CEC want to put into that, right? In terms of volunteer time and crafting these messages, finding the places to put them in, working with town hall staff to do that. There's a little bit of that involved. Should there be budget involved? Would be another question I would put out there, right? Should some sort of stipend be made available for, or we simply make the recommendation, hey, maybe you should consider, right? That some stipend be made available, so as a possibility of either one, inducing residents and contractors to be fuel switching, or for the purpose of time is money and paying for town hall staff to be working some angles as far as how this should be worked out and deployed. And to a certain extent, I didn't mention this earlier, Ted, I know you're familiar. You were our emissary to the Sustainability Advisory Group. Sustainable CT has that matching grant fund, right? So we could also be talking about setting aside some finite amount of funds and then doubling the money with a sustainability campaign, right? So maybe those funds go to vouchers, or maybe they simply go to marketing collateral, right? But the possibility exists to make it go twice as far. I should have mentioned that earlier too. So anyways, that's what I wanted to mention earlier, just seconding what I heard from Ted is maybe the easiest to conceive of and most viable consensus path. Other thoughts?
I don't want to have to hire an accountant just to do my property taxes.
No one does.
So my question is, what's on the table? Are there, it sounds like we had at least 3 or 4 people who are in agreement that, or maybe I misinterpreted, so I don't want to speak for anyone, but it sounded like that either further study was needed or that this really isn't something we would recommend that the town move forward with.
When you say this, that matters. You want to define it?
So when I say this, right, the town has come to us, asked for our recommendation about what to do concerning the ban. And my understanding is that their request was to consider a ban on gas-powered leaf blowing equipment. If I'm incorrect on that, please correct me.
I think that the quickest tools to reach for that folks could think of might have been ordinance, right? Because that's something that the town can do. It's not the full universe of possibilities. So we can make a recommendation however we want.
I think my recommendation is that this is not a large town issue. This is a select few that's trying to make it a town issue, and that I don't think the town needs to move forward with it.
I was about to go next, but go for it, Rick. Mute. You don't look muted.
Sorry about that. I was muted. I just want to say I believe I agree with Sean 100% that this should not be a town issue. This should not be an ordinance or a mandate. I think it's I think you're going to create more animosity and anger and frustration, and then you're going to do anything. I think the right way to handle this is to, suggest that, people make change and not try to mandate it. I think that it would be there's just too much equipment out there. There's too many people who already own these things. It would be extremely costly for the residents. It would be so I don't think we need to, my opinion, we don't need to be pushing this onto people against their will. I think if there's a happy medium that we could arrive at to encourage people to make change, that would be a good solution. But as far as recommending some sort of ban on especially leaf blowers, I mean, I would argue that there's almost no difference in the amount of noise at all. They're almost identically, and the battery and electric ones just don't even work. You can't even use them. So to me, if you're just going to use specifically leaf blowers, I'm 100% opposed to making any recommendation other than maybe potentially some informational purposes. The lawnmowers, I mean, they're just like, it's like an electric car. You can't even hear them. They're very, very quiet. But the leaf blowers, and I would say definitely not.
Thank you, sir. Your anecdotal information is useful to hear. Similar to you, I have electric lawnmower, electric weed backer. They are very different. I don't have a leaf blower generally, so it's all anecdotal based on what I read and what I hear. All the other information I read is that it could be up to half the volume, maybe a 20 decibel difference, but I don't know if that's scientific or, again, anecdotal, right? And you know your own ears better. We count 2 of 5 leaning against an outright ban, which is a good and clear way to start winnowing this down. Any of the 4 remainders, including me, want to talk about their feelings about an outright ban or ordinance approach. And if you go negative on that, then we don't have quorum to take that. Spoiler. So that's one way to winnow this down in terms of the conversation. Does that make sense? The way I queued that up?
I mean, if it would be helpful, I would say I would not be supportive of an outright ban, certainly. I mean, I think that seems also not what was discussed. I think the proposal for the meeting that I was at was talking about examples of different towns that had bans from this time to this time or this month to this month. You know, I didn't really ever hear an outright ban ever contemplated. And that seems like it would pose some serious challenges. So I would not be supportive of an outright ban, certainly. You I guess different times of day, I don't have such strong feeling about, like, some limitations on their use, but you know, I agree with Emily. Without having like a more concrete proposal to look at the specifics of, I have a really difficult time saying we should do this. And I don't think we've had the time to really invest in coming out with a like real concrete proposal. If there was some sort of deep funded grant to, you know, you get a $500 incentive to switch out this for that, like they did, I guess, 10 years ago for municipalities, then maybe that would be a proposal, but without a source of funding to incentivize that carrot, uh, you know.
You parsed that one smartly. The problem I had with the time of day was that a part of this is everyone's work. A lot of people are working from home still because of COVID, and that's exactly when they're hearing commercial
Exactly.
contractors or when the daylight exists
Exactly.
for residents to do
So
that
it looks
work.
like,
So,
yeah, the Greenwich ordinance that was amended this year, it looks like they were saying you just can't do leaf blowing again from, what was that, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., but that's not helpful for those of us working from home. So again, like, I don't really know how effective that would be at addressing the quality of life concerns that people seem to be voicing. So again, without a proposal that seems like it could be implemented, it seems, and on that note, I think something saying, oh, a decibel level, that would be very difficult to enforce. Like you said, it would be someone saying, hey, I have this problem, like an officer with a instrument that can actually test decibel levels, getting to your house in that time, testing it, issuing a warning, then coming back and issue some sort of fine or fee. I mean, it just seems very difficult to implement. And I know there have been other noise-based complaints in the state that were very difficult to actually enforce for this reason. Like, do we have the manpower? Do we have the or woman power? Do we have the technology available to all the officers to test it? Like, I just think a noise-based ordinance would be difficult to actually implement to a degree that would be satisfactory to the people who are looking for a little bit more peace and quiet during the day. I think a rate ban just is a little draconian and on balance going to make more people upset. And it seems like the model ordinances aren't really going to address the time of day that people are looking for. So if there's an education component that could work great, if there's a funding source that we can incentivize, great. But again, I don't feel like there's anything I can say I would support this policy. I can say I think there are administrative and problems implementing some of the other policies that have been put forth. So.
does that take us further around the table? Ted, did you have your hand up for a second?
Yeah, so I am in agreement with what everybody testified. I would not support a ban. I wouldn't even support a ban for a certain period of time, like from Memorial Day to Labor Day. I don't think that's practical or appropriate or fair when most of the landscaping is getting done. I do feel like this is a relatively new problem because we have more people now working from home and aware of the problem in the middle of the day with the noise. So I guess what I would support is an expectation that people are good citizens and recognize that the noise that their machines, whether it's a leaf blower or a lawnmower or something, can impact the quality of life, and an expectation that whatever the decibel level is, that people adhere to that. So I'll just give you an example. My parents live out in Kentucky. We were there this morning, came back. I was late joining our meeting tonight, was just rolling into from a 6 hour commute back essentially with ferry and the boat. They have a very busy airport that's extremely busy 3 months out of the year. So from mid-June through mid-September, it's the second busiest airport in Massachusetts, next to Logan. And so there's a number of homes that are right around this airport that used to be a very small airport. And the commercial airlines that take off, including jets and large propeller planes, sometimes go right over the homes when they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to go straight out over the ocean, up, not going over neighborhoods or communities. But with the cost of jet fuel and timing and everything else, you sometimes skip that part of it and just go right over the houses. So there is a voluntary incentive program among the airlines to do that. And so anytime a homeowner complains about an an airline going over their neighborhood, that's kind of a negative. And every time they have no complaints, I guess over a week or something like that, they get positive points. And so the pilots themselves actually are in the running for these incentives based on the amount of points that they accrue, and they get swag and other types of things that I don't really know. So, but it's a voluntary thing. I'm just wondering if there's a way we can look at that in West Hartford and say, wouldn't it be great if people get educated about kind of the impact of these machines on everybody else, particularly now that people are working from home? And wouldn't it be nice if there was some way that we can perhaps reduce the accepted volume of noise that people make during the day, because it does bother other folks, and then provide some incentive, some voluntary incentive for people to comply with that greater expectation of quieter equipment.
We have swag.
We have swag.
You can get a square of
I
AstroTurf.
think people would prefer to have text a bit more than a swag, but maybe a combination of both those things would be really helpful.
CEC sweatshirts, man. That's it.
Mm-hmm. We didn't get into product and branding.
Rick, I'd have a question for you because I know you had mentioned some of this. How much? Just a guesstimate, I would assume. What would you guess, though, is the percentage of homeowners that even own a gas-powered leaf blower? It just seems to me, and granted, this is strictly anecdotal, but it seems like the gas-powered leaf blowers are more used for commercial, meaning residential, right? But it's usually a landscaper that you've hired to do your house that has the gas-powered. I mean, I used to have a leaf blower myself, but it was electric because number one, the gas, I didn't have a use necessary, or didn't think I had a use for the gas power. And to your point, it didn't bother me at the time that it took me longer to do my lawn. But if I'm like I see my landscaper, right, I pay him a certain amount, and the only way he makes money is if he does 10 lawns or 20 lawns that day, and you can't do 20 lawns with an electric powered leaf blower. So I'm just wondering, who does this, I don't mind us providing incentive. I'm fine with that, but I'm just wondering, do you think it's a large percentage of regular homeowners, non-landscaping business owners that own gas powered leaf blowers?
Well, that question was directed at me, so I'll jump right in and answer it. I own a gas powered because I own, a lot of properties in town. So I'm not a typical homeowner. And based off of all of the neighbors who live in my neighborhood who I go and blow their leaves off, I would say very few of them own a gas powered leaf blower. Almost none of them are all out there with their rakes.
Right.
So it is not a very large percentage of people that have the noise producing leaf blowers. So, and on that note, guys, I have to bring my daughter to Dick's Sporting Goods to buy basketball sneakers because she has tryouts tomorrow. So I have to say goodbye.
Connor's is tomorrow.
Really
Shannon had her tryout, her first tryout
I was
today.
gonna say, Sean has to excuse something basketball related, obviously.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, she had her first tryout today, but her sneakers were crushing her feet. So I
okay.
have to get her new sneakers. But So yeah,
Well,
yeah.
good
So
luck with
she,
it.
and she actually did really well. I'm really proud of her.
Awesome.
Thanks. Thanks. Listen,
Thank
it's
you,
really
sir.
been fun tonight.
Rick, do you have 1 extra minute?
Yes.
Okay. Can we come to an agreement in concept with at least, 51% of the quorum here, about, let's say, go into the December meeting to continue this discussion as to, okay, exactly what do we recommend? How do we narrow this down on the education and possibly incentive side in terms of what to recommend?
Sounds good.
Am I narrowing that down sufficiently? What would
Yeah. I
you
mean,
say?
that's, yeah. I think that's specifically narrow enough that we agree that a ban is not the right decision. Are we going to take that step here? I think we've already said it. Enough of us have said that, and that the idea of an education is clearly effective and beneficial without costing us anybody a lot of money. And if we do it, so yeah, I think as long as we don't waste, another whole meeting on it, I think be a great idea to take it up and kind of formalize some of the language that we choose to push up to the higher level.
We'll pray for a December meeting, and people can do homework at their own election, and I'll be chipping away at that too. But if anyone else is so inclined, do please feel free to come and populate that meeting with options or share them in the meantime, because there's a lot of good things that we could do here. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry to go early. Bye.
Thanks, Rick.
And I hear my toddler approaching.
Yeah, it's bedtime at my house.
I put in public comment opportunity for agenda item number 4. It's kind of a catch-all as a just in case. We didn't get that. It wasn't promoted for this round, so I'm not seeing anybody here. I'll wait 5 to 10 seconds in case anyone wants to interrupt me and tell me I'm wrong. Okay. With that, anything else for the good of the group?
Not here.
Well, I've enjoyed this time just tremendously with you. So agenda item 5, adjournment. The time is 8:24 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion that we adjourn. Ted.
Emily and Ted. Thank you so much. Sean, thanks for the notes. Keep them short, send them on over, and we'll give them the top line summary. And thank you, everybody. Much appreciated, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Mitch.
And
All
thanks,
right,
folks.
see you guys in December.
Yep.
Here, everybody.
Thank-
Happy holidays.
See you.